Welcome to Breakout Creator. We have a very special guest joining us, Scumbag Dad. Scumbag Dad is a well-known creator who's made a name for himself on social media through his unique perspective and content. Today we'll be deep diving into Scumbag Dad's beginnings as a creator. We'll be discussing his journey so far, and we'll get a unique view into his thoughts on the current state of social media. We'll also be talking about his viewpoints on social trends and experiments, and we'll get his take on what the future holds for creators in 2023. So sit back and relax and get ready to learn from one of the industry's most innovative creators, Scumbag Dad. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and click the links in the description to follow our guest. Thanks.
Tell me, you're the boss here.
We just go. I don't know.
You invited me for podcasting, and I mean, at the end of the day,
I got you ready for that spot there. Cool. Yeah. Check this out. You got little cameras right here.
Oh wow!
That? How's that?
Yeah,
it looks
nice.
good.
Yeah, I got dressed up for this.
Wait, and the outfit's on I don't know the saying.
On point.
On point. Yes, and the headphones here.
Here,
right here, attached to the thing right there, on the mic.
Cool.
And then you should be able to hear yourself.
Sure. You know, this is the best way. This is one of the easiest ways to make content. You have a conversation, you take the best parts, and then that is a video.
Exactly.
You don't need anything else. As long as we get good sound bites. A wealth of content, extremely cost effective. Nice lighting setup here. I do love the whole situation. You showed me a picture and I was like, oh wow, he's doing a lot with this space. That's fantastic. Thank
you very much. Thank you. Okay, well, no pressure. We're gonna, of course, when you say no pressure,
I never feel pressured.
Okay, I don't even know where to start with you. I'm looking. Actually, I lied.
You can start wherever you want.
I have a thing over here. Check this out. Behind you.
Questions? Oh my God.
Look at this. I found this website. It tells you your analytics. I thought that would be a cool place to start.
Social Blade?
It's called Buzzalytics.
Oh, got it.
Can you hear yourself?
I can hear myself just fine, yeah.
Okay. I could be a little louder.
I'm glad I wore the sweater. It plays well with the entire color scheme you got here.
Thank you.
So cool. So I'm guessing, have you already started recording?
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Did you already get my bit about like
I did.
We're gonna do this?
I did,
get content? All right, perfect.
Yeah. I figured.
And there's a camera on you as well. Yeah,
there is.
What a setup.
Boom.
Well, I'm happy
and back here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of it. Yeah, this is fantastic.
So that's the wide.
We could have multiple guests and stuff.
We got multiple guests.
Cool.
We're shooting vertical.
Do you want to get multiple guests? I know other people I can invite.
Another time,
Yeah, another time. Not today.
Today's your day.
Today's just me and you.
Yeah, and I'm still experimenting, just like push and go and talking and trying to limit the outside content, like communication.
Sure.
Until we jump in.
Whatever works.
And then go. You have, look at this, 1.6 billion views. Did you know that?
I didn't. Not until right now. So that's a lot of views.
How crazy.
Good for me. Yay. Look, Ma.
What does it mean? What does it mean?
It just means that, it means that for whatever reason, the account's been at least modestly successful over the course of the last couple of years. I mean, that number would have been much more impressive 5 years ago, before like every single person and their mother decided to get on TikTok and on YouTube and stuff. But like, I'm super duper proud of that. Like, it's a super super exciting thing, and it proves that I somewhat know what I'm doing.
How about 4.7 million followers now? Also,
I'm very proud of that. It's been a slow grind from, I've been trying to do art for years and years and years. It's like since I was 15 years old. My first like attempt at being like a musician was me and my buddy recorded an album when we were 15 years old. And I've been grinding ever since and just failing ever since. I'm 40 now, and only in the last 2 years have I achieved anything remotely close to what you would call clout. I went to dental school. I went to ortho school. I did artistic projects throughout these things, and I took them very seriously, but I never got anywhere. Before this, I thought of myself as a musician. I did 2 very like high production music videos before TikTok started, and they flopped. And before that, I was part of a pirate rap group called Captain Dan and the Scurvy Crew. And Captain Dan and the Scurvy Crew was a parody concept we made when we were like in college, like late high school. And we made a music video about like pirates who rap, and it totally took off. And by took off, I mean 100,000 views. But that was still enough to sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of albums. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So that was like more than 11 years ago, like 12 years ago. So back then, the numbers that you needed in order to earn a modest amount of money from, okay,
Oh,
Take care of
no,
business.
that's a reminder. Just a reminder. You don't mind.
Oh, do we have to say the name of the podcast?
No.
This is the... Oh.
Breakout Creator. No, I forgot to turn the phone on silent. And of course, let's jump right back into it. Yeah.
I'm not in a rush. We went right in. I like efficiency.
Oh, yeah.
Efficiency is very important. If I'm here to make a podcast, let's bang out all the podcast stuff we can, and then maybe we'll have like a coffee, and then do like one other thing, and then move on. There's no sense in wait. Like we could get to know each other, but we can get to know each other on the podcast.
Exactly. That's
like,
exactly what I was thinking.
I can ask you questions. I can be like, yeah, so Dominic, how do you like living in Venice?
It's great.
Yeah, it's
great.
fantastic.
But I want to know more about your pirate crew.
Yeah.
Your friends. Let's go.
So we had the pirate crew was a total gag, like a lot like my current content, was just not taken seriously, and for some reason it started to sell. We had our little, goofy hit. We did a stop motion music video of the characters called Blackbeard's Treasure, and it took us a long time to do. But this was, we had no followers, we had no clout, no nothing, but we ended up posting to a comedy forum that ended up like blowing it up. And then I was going to the post office every day mailing CDs. And then eventually I would use a different service to sell the CDs. And we got booked for like Renaissance festivals and nerd rap shows. And it went really, really well for a while. And then we were invited onto America's Got Talent. And it was kind of a setup. It was one of those things where like we were definitely going to be the heels.
Okay.
There was
what are heels?
Like heels are the people who are sort of mistreated, who are the gags, or who are the villains in the whole thing. But
is that a setup?
I feel like the way we were sort of positioned on that day was a bit of a setup. Due to it was a 10-hour shoot. It was a 10-hour shoot. We were second to last. All of the like hot acts that people like, you could tell were going to go well, were pretty early in the day. Like we met a group of cloggers, guys who dance professionally, who just clog. And they were like, oh, this is your first talent show? Like, and they were like, there's veterans. There's people who do like America's Got Talent, Europe's Got Talent, X Factor, whatever. There are people who like do this for a living. They just go on these shows, they get a certain amount, and then they end up failing for whatever reason. But they basically told us, they're like, oh yeah, if you see a dog or a kid, you're done. Like, don't expect to win.
What do you mean a dog?
A dog, like a dog doing a trick show on America's Got Talent, or a child doing a song. So if you are on one of these television shows, the people who are going to go forward, obviously the very talented ones, but if you're up against a young person, you're toast. Right. And so these cloggers, they talk to us, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to go through about 3 rounds, then they're going to kick us off. This is our job. This is how we do it. This is how we get sponsorships and how we book gigs, is just by going on these shows. But we were invited on, and like the whole idea of auditioning to be on one of these shows was completely like disillusioned. I thought the producer who called us was a liar. I thought it was spam. I thought it was a scam. I was like, there is no way America's Got Talent is writing to us. They want us to audition. Like, I'm not even going to answer the email. And Dan was like, okay, let's answer. It might be real. And sure enough, it was. And they booked us to just perform. There was no like long audition process. Like, that shot where they have the performer waiting in line, that's just staged. They just take you out of the studio, put you in the line that's already there, and then they take you back. So we were always going to be there. And the audience reaction when we performed was not bad. The boos and the sort of groans that were placed in the video that you can, I think, find on YouTube, they're added. They're completely added in. We didn't have time to do anything.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So like, we would go on to pontificate for months and months, like, why did it go wrong? But I think it went wrong from the beginning. You can see Howard Stern. He's like, I have a feeling I'm going to make you walk the plank. And to be fair, like in the behind the scenes, like it's a grueling process to sit there all day. And I'm sure it's grueling for the judges as well. Do I think we were sort of intentionally placed where most of the people were getting buzzed off? I mean, yeah, like at the end of the day, I think everyone wanted to go home. They were buzzing off a bunch of people. And we got axed, and that sort of, so Dan, kind of tapered off doing music. He had a kid around them, but at the time, like we were making music all the time. Like it was just Brad and Dan making industrial songs and pirate rap songs and orchestral stuff. And then I maybe that's probably the beginning of a villain origin story, because then I tried to go on MasterChef about 2 years later, and I actually was top 100 for season 5.
No way.
Yeah, I learned how to cook a bunch of dishes. I had like a really dumb reputation as a guy who wrote rap songs about food. So I took like the Captain Dan skills, and I do like a silly rap songs for whatever food blogs there were. And It wasn't like actual fame, but it was enough to sort of get me through the first couple levels of audition for MasterChef. And so
Oh my gosh.
I cooked Don Don noodles, which was a dish that was really well known in Philly at a place called Han Dynasty. And I loved this dish so much, I learned how to cook it. And I gourmeted it up a little bit. I added some extra ingredients. And so I thought I was sticking to the tradition of the dish while also making it, a little bit more MasterChef-y. And so they gave me, because of my sort of like bloggy, like comedy stuff, they gave me VIP status. So immediately I was already going to go through the first couple of rounds. And then they shipped me to Burbank, where you're locked in a hotel, which is like a combination foodie summer camp and jail. You can't leave. You can't call people. Can't use the internet. They don't want you to like use Twitter or anything to tell people who's there. And then they put you through a bunch of, screen tests, photographs. They do a couple of interviews. They have you interact with other people and like a lot of just sort of boring nonsense. And they ended up booting me like that week. I never made it to the cameras. They booted 70 people. And I think it's because my interview went very badly. They do an interview like in front of a cardboard. They do an interview in front of cardboard fruit, to make it look like you're in a real kitchen.
Okay.
And in this interview, they asked me, do you want to quit being an orthodontist to become a chef? And I was like, not really. And so that was a wrong answer. I have to be like, oh, cooking's my passion. My mother has 3 forms of cancer. And if I don't become a chef, she's going to be sad in her final days. That, I had no dramatic answers because I was already there. In my arrogance, I thought I was going to get on TV. I had a lot of confidence in my cooking skills. A bunch of chefs trained me before I went off to film. And so I was like, whatever, I don't have to lie. I'm not going to disparage my career, and pretend like being an orthodontist, is something I dislike, because I do like it. But I gave some very non-dramatic answers. They're like, would you quit being an orthodontist to be a chef? And I'm like, no. How long have you been cooking for? And I'm like, July. Because I hadn't been cooking very seriously for a long time. I started cooking seriously to be on MasterChef. I knew how to make Don Don noodles. I thought I had a good personality, and I made it to a certain level. But at the end of the day, I would learn that they have these things that they call boxes, and that's what you compete against. So it wasn't like I was going up against the other 100 people there, right? I was going up against the other people in my box, like, straight, white presenting, taller, professional male. There were like 4 or 5 other guys who sort of fit into that demographic box.
Sure.
And so they booted me, and that's fine. And so it's not like that was, that stopped me. I kept writing music. I kept on doing projects. And then pandemic hit, and then I started to get my first traction. I started to use TikTok to promote music that I'd written for YouTube and other platforms. And then I started to hit on watch videos. And I was like, that's interesting. I love watches.
That's your first hit, is watch videos?
That's correct. The first video I succeeded with on TikTok was a watch video. And I had a modest watch collection at the time, but I was treating TikTok very casually. To me, it was a subsidiary that I could use to plug people to go to my YouTube, to please watch the music videos I'd worked really hard on. And one day I was waiting for my wife to finish lunch. She'd met with a friend, and I went to pick them up, and I was wearing a Clock 2 watch, and I was just like, I'm going to do just an absolute garbage watch review. And I'm like, this is the watch I like. This is what it does. And then I posted it, and then, later on that evening, even though I had, I don't know, must have been 500 followers, just a real, not a very large number. All of a sudden it blew up to like 10,000. I got like 2 million views in a day. And what that did is it didn't make me say, oh, I'm immediately going to start making only watch videos, but it made me realize that the organic potential of TikTok was absolutely beyond all the other ones. Like, in order for me to get people to watch my videos on YouTube, or, I think I was using Vimeo or something to plug a different video. In order for me to get people to go there, it felt like just an absolute grind. I had no really good, smart tactics. I would plug them on different forums, and that wouldn't work, or, I had nothing. I had no publicist. I had no fame or no clout. So trying to get people trying to get people to see my other music, it was basically I was going to the Captain and Dan and the Scurvy Crew Facebook and posting it. So like pirate rap fans, we hadn't made pirate rap in a while, but I'm like, oh, please see my stuff. And what I realized with the watch video is, okay, even with a limited number of followers, I can get a large number of eyes on a relatively low effort video. And so that's when it started to progress. I started to make skits. I used to do little rap songs about my wife, like while she was asleep. And then I put an egg on her head.
Yep.
And then that was probably, the biggest giant push that sort of made me ignore the other platforms in favor of TikTok. And then it was just experimentation there. And then the account's gone through several different eras of like different weird meta jokes. And now I'm in a weird satire phase where I'm just making fun of anybody who I think I can, or anybody who I think, has a narrative that's easy to just poke holes in.
Wow. Okay. And what has been your favorite series that you've done?
It's definitely Scumbag Dad. Like, I am very sad about the sort of decline of Scumbag Dad due to the number of violations I got in 2022. 2021, I did the Scumbag Dad project as a foil to Your Korean Dad. Me and a couple friends were out at a bar, and we were, celebrating somebody's birthday. And my wife and I were talking about, like, we'd started like really getting into TikTok at the time. We were doing these Attack on Titan videos that were blowing up.
Right.
So I would take a little camera and I'd dress up like a Titan around like a little mini city, and they would get like, 10 million views, and they did really, really well.
Yeah.
And at the time we were talking about different TikTokers that we liked, different comedy accounts and whatever. My wife is like, I really love Korean Dad. He's so sweet. He's so inspiring. And so I was, a little bit tipsy, and I was like, it'd be funnier if he was evil. If he was, what if he was more realistic? Like, he just abandons you, and Your Korean Dad was very sweet. He's like, hi, I'm your Korean Dad. And he goes out and takes the viewer on, nice little errands and trips, and they eat grapes together, and that's all well and good. And I was like, what about the dad who abandons you for a date and leaves you in the car, or the dad who like gets super drunk and doesn't show up for a couple days? And so Scumbag Dad was born that night. And the next morning we were at lunch, and I was like, let's do the first Scumbag Dad. Let's just do it. I'm like, I'm going to be Scumbag Dad now. And so we filmed a quick video of just the same intro as Korean Dad, like, hi, I'm your Scumbag Dad. But instead of him being nice, he just sort of is indifferent in the conversation. He takes a phone call, ignores the viewer, and then forces them to pay for the wings. He just leaves without paying the bill. And so that video, even though it wasn't really well thought out, at the time, it got, I think, maybe 400,000 views in the first day. And at the time, for me, like, a video that low effort to succeed was just absolutely mind-blowing, just super mind-blowing. So I did it again, slightly, same amount of effort, just Scumbag Dad throws the kid's toy out the window. Another like 500,000 views. I'm like, okay, well, what if I push this? What if Scumbag Dad, like, what if I start to develop a story? Like, how can I deviate from this sort of expectation that it's just going to be the dad being, sort of emotionally abusive? And the story sort of wrote itself from there. Like, he's a criminal. He is a drug dealer, but he can't talk about being a drug dealer in front of the kid because we don't know the age of the viewer. Like, it's supposed to be very nebulous. So the kid, we always called the character the kid, like, the kid could be any age. And so I want the story to still work. So he's never beating people up. He's just, wrestling with them. It's not blood on his hand. It's strawberry sauce, or it's something that's not even talked about. And so it was a combination of like that innocent story, but also avoiding the guidelines that made me start to try and keep pushing the limits to make the story about this just insane criminal father who's using his much more talented kid to like progress his career in the underworld. And the story, like, they're like standalone episodes, but there was a deep lore I was building towards that got completely nerfed at the end of last year, where, if I'm telling a story about the kid was eventually going to become more dangerous than the dad. The kid was eventually going to take over the gang. We're going to find out where the mom was. Like, there were going to be questions that were going to be answered after the Maldives episodes that really wrapped up like where dad went during those times. Like, there were all these little dumb Easter eggs I was planting that were going to lead to like a big reveal. and more sort of storytelling. And so I started to explore that in the early 2022, and I just got nailed. Guideline. They were guidelines, my old stuff. I feel like I just got too big. Like I feel like the account, when I had like under 2 million followers, I feel like I was relatively under the radar.
Right.
They hit me sometimes, but then I would put up warnings. I'd be like, prop, knife, not real. And so I would sort of do more mental somersaults to avoid the bans. But then once 2022 hit, I couldn't keep anything up. And the problem with the TikTok guidelines, and even though I'm very happy with TikTok because it gave me the platform I do,
Right.
the problem with these guidelines is there's no person to ask. Like, so what about this one made it bad? Like, was it that the person pretended to punch? Was it that somebody connected? Was it that they said a curse word beforehand? Was it that, like, there's so many videos that I see like blow up where they do have fight scenes, they do have action scenes, they do have blood, whether it's, whether they say fake blood or not fake blood. And I could never really pinpoint which parts were hitting me. And so that type of frustration led to me doing even more mental somersaults to try and get around the guidelines. And these somersaults like wheedled down my ability to tell the story. I eventually came to the conclusion I couldn't have the kid hit anybody. Anytime the kid put up a fist, it's gone. The video's gone. And so if I'm trying to tell this story about how the kid is becoming stronger, how the kid, where the mom is at, certain plot points have to be preserved or else it's going to be confusing. So if the video goes down or gets one of those content warnings, it's like I never made it. And so in the early days, all of my friends and cohorts who would join me on them, it was a super exciting thing to do because the ideas were very fluid. It was very fun and very slick. And then we'd post it and we'd all be very proud. Oh, it's got so many hits. And then, my friend Danny got 2,000 followers in a day from just being in one of them.
Dang.
So, but then they started to get nailed. And so now all of this time and effort and resources we put into making these high effort videos started to feel wasted. What did we do? We just blew the whole day. We did an action scene. We sprayed fake blood on Carl and it got nerfed and it petered out at 50,000 hits and we got a content warning after it was taken down and it won appeal. And don't get me wrong, YouTube and Instagram's actually just as bad. I lied. I'm demonetized right now on Instagram because of a Scumbag Dad episode.
No way.
So what I've sort of learned is that for all the advantages that that algorithmic content has, if it plays very well if you're not trying to do dark humor. If you're trying to do dark humor that's even remotely action-based or physical, it's tough to survive once you get big enough. And so that's part of the reason I do so many parodies and satire is because it's a way for me to sneak in, sort of more, I guess you could say more subversive concepts without worrying about getting banned, because I'm going off an established trend. I put myself in the confines of that world.
Right.
So the angel shot trend, you've probably seen some of my videos on that. Yes. Yeah. I was super proud of the way I did that because in the angel shot trend, when these creators, when the POV creators did the angel shot trend, it was fairly static. Excuse me, bartender. The bartender's doing something a little bit graphic off screen. Excuse me, bartender, I need an angel shot. Who? Then they pick up a weapon or something violent happens, right? So, but what other... So now I want to put myself in this world, right? So we have this world. What they've done is they've created this world where every bartender is now murdering people with blue shirts. What are the other elements of this world? Well, is it just the angel shot? What about the angel food cake? What about with the angel tooth? Does it play in other jobs? In the world of angel shot, is there one angel shot giver who's better than the others, like a professional? Oh my God, that's him. He's super good at angel shots. What about the blue shirts? Why are they always repressed? Why is it always a guy in blue? Is there a blue shirt who eventually becomes strong enough to fight back? So we get these, instead of, sort of taking off on my own sort of evil series that I want to do, it's now sort of about trying to fly under the guidelines, under the disguise that I'm actually playing with trends. And in my opinion, some of the, videos I've touched on have gotten super duper dark. I intentionally put in really, really depressing elements here and there that I would never get away with if it was, an original series or if I wasn't sort of sneaking in under the guise of doing a trend.
Have you been on any of the other platforms? Have you tried to post to?
Yeah. YouTube. I'm on YouTube and Instagram, and YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Like they all sort of build together. You know, the content I make can be posted to all of them. So whatever I make something, I post it to all of them. And in general, YouTube seems to be the least punishing, but also YouTube, it was the most difficult to grow. I had no YouTube traction, or even Instagram traction for that matter. I had no YouTube traction until literally 1 year ago. I was on vacation with my wife in the Maldives. I had posted things to YouTube secondarily. I'm like, I don't trust it. I'm not getting any followers. Even though YouTube Shorts had just come out, my algorithmic reach was trash. And I just I was doing it just on the toilet, you know, re-uploading my TikToks, right? Yeah. And then one random day I look down and I see 20,000 views on a Scumbag Dad episode on YouTube. And I'm like, wow, I've never broken like 8 views, you know what I mean? And then I do believe, I have no proof of this, but I believe that it was that someone hit a button. I don't believe I did anything. I lied. I have 2 theories on this. I believe that either someone hit a button over at YouTube where they're like, you know, we need to get some of these TikTokers over here. We need them to start taking YouTube more seriously. And they must have selected me. And they're like, what about this guy? He's uploading regularly. Let's give him the algorithm magic. Boom. And then it goes up. So that's theory number 1. Theory number 2 might be a little bit more realistic, and that was because I was plugging a film at the time called Wild Hits. So I was so bear in mind, I had started to learn that parodying people was a good in, right? So I made a David Dobrik parody that was, I didn't want to do David Dobrik easy. I wanted to make fun of him in like a very extensive way. So I got all my friends together and we made a short film, a 9-minute film called Wild Hits, which was presented, like when you watch the beginning, it's like, we're a bunch of fun people and we do little pranks and we're going to pay her $100 to squirt lime juice in her eye at lunch. Yeah. Oh, and for our next prank, we're going to kill 3 people. And then it's just like a brutal, there's 3 brutal murders.
Oh my gosh.
And I wanted it to be sort of a symbol on how guys like David Dobrik essentially get away with anything. So I went hard on that, but it was so violent, I wasn't able to plug any part of it on TikTok. And, you know, TikTok's algorithm is super good at identifying when you're trying to get people off site. So we had put all this effort into this video. And so I started to do these weird clues in the comments sections. So if a creator posts link in bio, it's not going anywhere. If a creator posts, check out my YouTube, it's not going anywhere. I don't know how they know. They just know, right? They know you're trying to get people off site. So I would start baiting my fans to talk about in the comments. I could be like, well, for more action, don't go to another site that you won't see. And then like some of my fans would comment, they'd be like, oh, well, sure is a good thing I haven't seen his short film Wild Hits, which I would never want anyone to leave TikTok to do. So a lot of my fans sort of started to get it. And I would talk about it on lives. And so I'd pin their comment. And so that I started to see a little bit of traction there, which was, bear in mind, a little bit was really good for me at the time. I had nothing on my YouTube. And so I think that the journey of pushing a couple, you know, maybe a dozen or 100 fans per day to the YouTube, nice. I think that triggered the shorts. So I have no proof of any of this, but the shorts were triggered at the same time as I was daily plugging Wild Hits. And now the YouTube, like, they're all sort of at an even pace. Like, they all do, like, pretty well. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm really proud of Wild Hits. I'm sad that it flopped. But I think that the silver lining is that it may have helped boost my YouTube to where it is today.
How long were you posting consecutively on YouTube before you saw that little magic bump?
I was posting, I was posting almost daily. I was doing it let me rephrase. I think I was doing it, like, maybe 1 every 2 days. I would repost, I think, any TikTok that went well, I would repost to YouTube. But I wasn't as aggressive with it. Like, I would post a lot to YouTube. I would post a lot to TikTok because some videos were just easier to do. Like a duet or a stitch, for instance. I would just do that on TikTok and I wouldn't worry about reposting it to the other platforms. But once YouTube started to do well, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to put everything on everything and sort of diversify the portfolio. But I still, like, emotionally, I still, like, disliked YouTube because I would put the same quality content there as I did on TikTok and it would just go nowhere. But now that's not the case. Now I have a decent platform, so it's sort of self-sustaining.
So what's your plan now? on YouTube, but you're demonetized.
Oh no, well I'm demonetized right now on Instagram. So I can monetize on YouTube. The idea is to keep on pushing the limits of what I'm up to right now. Basically every 1 to 2 months I come up with like some bigger project. And then, you know, I feel like eventually one of the bigger projects is going to hit in a way that's more meaningful.
Right.
So far that hasn't happened, but at the end of the day, we're at a good clip. I upload videos. I help my wife plug her merchandise, and then we sell quite a bit of that.
Wow.
But sort of the next thing is to, you know, try and lock down a talent agent. I've got 2 talent agents who are interested,
Okay.
which I've never had before. And then depending on where the money is in about a year, perhaps consider a move out of Iowa into another state. So we currently live in Iowa.
Okay.
I work as an orthodontist. I'm an orthodontist, you know, 9 days a month now. I've reduced my days so that I can, you know, spend more time with my kid and work more on this kind of stuff. But like the next short film is actually going to be a Christmas action movie that I'm hoping to film when I go back to Iowa.
Do you have a title?
I do. It's going to be called Ebenezer Scrooge Ghost Slayer.
Ghost Slayer.
Correct. I'm super.
Can we reveal some of it?
I don't really care. I don't think anybody's going to take this idea because it's so hokey.
Okay.
But it's so 200 years after the events of A Christmas Story, Ebenezer Scrooge has spent his billions of dollars to give himself essentially eternal youth, gain his strength back, and train in kung fu. And Ebenezer Scrooge has used his money to research the paranormal. And all the things he was wearing that night and touching have become paranormal. So for instance, his candle, his cane, his pajamas, because they were touched by the ghosts, he's able to do science. And now they're able to be used as weapons against the ghosts. So the first scene is going to be the ghost of Christmas past tucking in his kid. Oh, it's time for us to go, you know, solve another mystery or help another soul. And then all of a sudden the lights go out. He's like, what the hell? And then somebody with a cane bursts through the glass and beats the tar out of him. The next scene, he's in a coma, and the ghost of Christmas present future smoking a cigarette. They're like, what was it? Who could have done this? And they find out that it's Scrooge. And because they touched the cane 200 years ago, now it doesn't pass through them. Because regular humans, they can't fight ghosts. Your fists pass through. But if the ghost touched that item, like grabbed that item in your house, that item could be now used as a spectral weapon. So I don't know if it's going to go well, but cool. I just imagine like myself in pajamas in the snow, like fighting somebody. And, you know, we'll probably have blood, which means I probably won't be able to plug it on TikTok. But it's just like I've done
snow guts.
Yeah, I've done it.
Guts.
I do. I think that'll be funny. There'll be a lot of anime references and gags in there. And I think it'll just be like my other action films. Like it'll be fun to do like for all my friends, but at the end of the day, it'll be impossible to plug.
Tell me about, like, I just realized that you have a YouTube short called Angel Shot.
Yeah, Angel Shot Origins, the Omega Endgame. So that was at the height of the Angel Shot trend. Insta360 was one of my sponsors. They said, we'll fund you to do a short film, right? And I said, all right, let's go. Let's do it. The good thing is they gave my friends and I enough money to do whatever we wanted in Vegas, including fire a tank. So
that's the craziest part.
Yeah. We fire a tank in the movie. I love the amount of freedom Insta360 gave me, but I had to tone things down so much at the end of the day for it still to be like a legitimate, you know, like sponsored post. There were certain items that, like, initially I wanted to just do a Scumbag Dad. My initial idea was like, oh, it's going to be, give me a budget for a Scumbag Dad episode. And so like I, you know, proposed the idea and that was immediately shot down because Scumbag Dad is inherently violent and inherently sort of like bad for branding, even though it would have been cooler. So I sort of remixed the idea. I worked backwards. I'm like, well, we want to fire a tank. Why are we firing a tank? So we sort of created this goofball plot that involved like myself and a bunch of other TikToker friends of mine because I wanted an excuse to make something big. I wanted to show off the camera. So the Insta360 X3 is like the camera we used.
Yeah.
Doing all those shots. I wanted to use those same camera tricks. But I also wanted to see what we could do with like time, budget, and a cast. And I'm super duper proud of the work. I do wish I could have made it much more violent. You know what I mean? Like, because we had a lot of resources there, but we had to stay within certain guidelines. Like, and those guidelines might have, might have worked on something like Netflix or HBO Max, but to make it like a sponsored post, I just wish I could have made it more violent, to be honest with you.
Do you think that there might be like a bigger, like a series, like a Netflix, somebody like that purchasing one of your series?
I feel like that would be like sort of a symbol that it all succeeded. I don't think
your goal?
Well, I don't think it is definitely one of the goals. I don't think Netflix would do it until I get signed to an agency. I did make a video a little while ago where I was just really honest with my audience. I'm like, yeah, because I got a lot of comments. They're like, where's Scumbag Dad? Why isn't any more Scumbag Dad? What's going on? And even though I'd explained it a million times on lives and on different videos, I just did like, look, guys, it's just not going to happen as long as TikTok and YouTube Shorts are my primary platforms. It's not going to happen because I can't do it right anymore, right? I'll still do it a little bit like for fan service because, if it's convenient, but it's hard to feel passionate about making new Scumbag Dad episodes if I know they're going down. You know what I mean? If I want to put in this very important plot point, and it happened a dozen times where I'm like, I don't know how I can do this with this video staying up. And sometimes I would just say F it and put the video up, and of course it goes down. Yeah. And then but why am I pretending like anything's going to change? And so as a result of my fear, the quality of the Scumbag Dad episodes, in my opinion, started to degrade because I was no longer sticking to the story, right? I was no longer sticking to canon. It was just dad is bad. Dad takes you out for something. He pretends like it's something else, and then a bad thing happens. But I didn't want to stick to that plot anymore. And with few exceptions, I feel like it showed in the work. My friends were no longer like as into it because it's not as fun anymore. Like now, instead of just going off and doing the plot, we now have to sit there for 5 minutes and be like, okay, so, well, we can't have him hit him. The kid has to be a heel now. Like the kid's character got nerfed because anytime the kid did anything except shoot somebody with a Nerf gun, it would get nerfed. So like now all the action scenes get transferred onto Dad and other characters, and that's less fun. I really wanted to make it like Hardcore Henry. Like that movie, I love.
Love that movie.
It's so good. And I wanted to make it just like an escalating series of horrible things happening to the kid, and eventually the kid, is becoming dangerous, and it just wasn't working.
Oh, okay. How about something like Patreon or Brand Army? Have you looked at it?
The truth is that I've entertained the idea of a Patreon, and I even signed up for it, but my brain is just too scattered right now to even start up like another platform. Just everything, I'm still an orthodontist. I got a son. Like every little minute counts. And even though I know it's probably strategically smart to do a Patreon, right now I feel balanced. But if something happens that convinces me that a Patreon, if something happens where I get demonetized on like YouTube, where I suddenly don't have income from one of these systems, I think I'll go to Patreon. I think that would be like the kick in the ass I need. But right now, like I have trouble managing all of these different projects and things at once, and just to add one more responsibility.
Who's on your team? Is it just you?
Well, I do all the editing and basically the filming, and my wife is an absolutely essential team member. Like she's with me all the time. My team changes up depending on where I'm at. Like when I am in Iowa, I've got like a handful of people who I can hang out with. We can go out, drinking and dinner, and then we shoot a thing. Here, I've got a team of people who I can rely on. Chunky's dead, Melissa Ong, Stanzi Potenza, we hung out recently, who was very funny. Like Marlon and Brandon. Like I have a couple recurring folks. There's a guy named Sean who I like to, interact with whenever I can. So there's people wherever we go. I've got a small crew, but I do all the editing. I do basically 99% of the nonsense on my own. It's fast. It's just faster that way. I know I can do it quickly.
And when you first started, what inspired you way before the pirate stuff? Like, have you always been a creator your whole life? Like, were you in theater in high school?
Yeah, I was. My mom signed me up for piano lessons when I was a kid, so I was a pianist for a long time. I was very showy during recitals, and then Dan went into drama. He went into drama in high school, and so I went as well. So I did theater in high school, and then I was a minor in theater in college. And so I did like being showy. At like I said before, at the time I viewed myself as much more of a musician than a comic. Yeah, like, I'm funny sometimes, but I sort of had this dream, this very naive dream that I would become like the next Trent Reznor or something when I was a kid.
I don't know.
In Nine Inch Nails.
Okay.
So like industrial grindy rock. He wrote do you remember the movie The Social Network?
Yeah.
He wrote the soundtrack to that.
Okay.
So like he's eased up a lot. But when I was a kid, I was heavy into metal and industrial music, and I liked, a lot of that style of.
Is that where Synthrat?
That's that's kind of where Synthrat came from.
What is Synthrat?
Synthrat was Synthrat is a ongoing gag on my channel, which, like most things, just emerged very organically. I'd started to do live streams, like music live streams, where I would just play piano or someone would sing like improvised lyrics while I played a beat. And so those weren't really very well attended. At the time it was like 15 people, right? But it was fun to do with me and my buddies. And so one day my buddy was singing the comments, and I had a rat mask on a shelf. And I bought this rat mask because I was making fun of a different trend like a couple weeks beforehand. There was a trend where people they flicked their keys and then like something would happen. So they'd have a chart. It would say like, eat cake, go exercise. And then they'd like flick their key, but it would always like the gravity would take it. So it always says exercise. So I made fun of that by like flicking the key, and then like the key flew off the paper and fell underneath the oven. And then like I grabbed the key and there's a rat under there. And so the gag was like this rat was now torturing the character who was flicking the key. And so I bought a rat mask for it. And so I had this rat mask already sitting in the closet or sitting on the shelf. And so I was playing the keyboard, and I was like, I'm just put on the mask. So I put on the mask, and suddenly jump in followers in the video. They're like, what the hell what have I stumbled into? What is this madness? And so like, why is like, nobody said Synthrat that day. It's like, this is a mouse musician, like mouse is playing keyboard. And so the next day I was like, okay, Synthrat sounds funny. Like this is a character I might be able to explore. So like, who is Synthrat? What is he here for? So I started to do a fashion transition video where it was like, here's the different things I would wear as, like that was a trend at the time. Here's what I would wear as, and then like different jobs, right? And so my jobs were like goofy, like goth club general contractor, like basically goth clothes with a hard hat on. So I had like 2 goof outfits, and then the third one was Synthrat. And then the fourth one was like Synthrat again. So people were like, I love Synthrat fits. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to explore this a little bit more. Synthrat is good because he's like a little bit monstrous, but he's a bit of a jump scare. So then I started to do other trends where it would present as Synthrat, or it would present as the regular trend, like, oh, here's how much this house costs. And then Synthrat's in the closet. So the gag became, any video could be Synthrat. I did an album of Synthrat music, which, was just like to support the character.
That's cool.
And it hit like a fever pitch where I was doing like really, really well anytime I'd throw Synthrat on. But at the end of the day, it was still a jump scare gag. And then once people started to recognize my profile picture, like it didn't work anymore. They're like, I know this is Synthrat. I know this is Synthrat. Dang. I was even pitching a Synthrat comic. I even, again, just like with all these ideas, I start to develop the story. And then it gets to a certain point where, for whatever reason, it's non-sustainable. I think I did actually make a Synthrat Patreon that was like, I don't know, like a dozen subscribers or something, but it was enough for me to start the first comic page and develop a lore. But I think a couple of Synthrat videos started to flop around that time. And I'm like, well, if I can't maintain this Patreon, if the numbers are falling, if I can't keep them up consistently, then that is, it's a clear indication that the joke might have run dry. I still bust out Synthrat once in a while because it's still funny, but the reason why Synthrat was funny is because it was so unexpected. Once I got a couple videos with a few million views, it became obvious. And then I did a couple extra projects where Synthrat would show up in other people's videos on other channels, right? Where I would coordinate different things where Synthrat would show up, and I would send Synthrat postcards. And those were all playing to the ethos of Synthrat, but eventually it started to taper off, and I started to move on to something else.
I love how all of your characters, they have a lore behind it.
Yeah, I mean,
there's like a deep story. It's not just what you're seeing. It's some huge backstory, and it's 85 episodes deep, and just this.
Yeah, thanks.
Incredible.
I feel like maybe that's a bad idea. I feel like constantly trying to evolve these characters on short form content is a little bit dumb. I know many creators who have been repeating the same joke throughout their entire careers, and they absolutely ace me in numbers.
Well, I'm not acing you in numbers.
You're not acing me in numbers,
No.
but I'm not referring to you. I'm not even going to call out. I'm not going to play the call out game like people where there's literally no diversity, and they can bowl over the numbers, and that's fine. That's what short form content is good. But getting into the meta is a problem I have, where I want to keep people interested, but I also want to see how far it can go. And with short form content, you can test that by just doing it. Whereas if we were doing like an HBO series, we might film an entire series, and then like all of a sudden everybody hates it, and like we filmed a whole season.
And that's it.
Yeah, and that's it. So, Scumbag Dad had that, but it's just the waxing and waning of what I believe is sort of like the nature of trends. Sometimes you're hot, sometimes you're not.
So I feel like if you had another platform like Patreon or Brand Army, and you're posting, but maybe you're posting short little clips on your TikTok or your YouTube, and you're just hinting at it like, hey guys, the whole story is really over here.
I mean, to be honest, might work.
Isn't that what you're doing?
It might work, and I thank you for talking to me about this. It's something I am seriously considering where I'm at, and I probably will within the next year.
Cool, because I would love to hear more, see more Scumbag Dad stories and Synthrat stories, and it's like those are your bits. Don't lose your bits. I mean, quote me on that.
They're not lost. They're not lost. They're just waiting. You know what? I feel there's going to come a day where, one of two things is going to happen. Either there's going to come a day where I break through the line, and then, I'm able to have creative freedom on a bigger platform, or I just die. I'm just a dead person.
No.
Like I just die. I get hit by a truck and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So one of those two things will happen. And as long as that tragedy doesn't happen before I've given up, then I don't know I failed. So, but that's why I'm seriously considering signing to a talent agency. I'm trying to make more moves on collaborations with other folks. And like I said, every 2 months I do something big. I thought Angel Shot would be huge because of how trendy it was on TikTok, but it was just very difficult. It's very difficult to get the shorts followers.
I just found out that you even had an Angel Shot longer series today.
Yeah, and
just now.
There you go. I posted 20 videos trying to plug it. None of them took off. A couple of them got hammered with the band hammer. And so it's very challenging to get the shorts audience from YouTube to go to your longer form videos. I don't know if there's a trick to it, but just because you have 1.6 million on YouTube does not mean your regular video is going to take off. For me to get 10,000 hits on a longer form YouTube video is a success, because I don't know, maybe it's the nature of myself, but I feel like it's tough to transfer the shorts audience to the long form stuff.
Oh man.
So, I mean, it's not going to stop me. Like I said, I'm going to keep on plugging, and I do still get views on the longer form stuff, but there will come a day where I break through with something. And to be honest with you, the whole dream, like the end goal, if there was one, is to get Dan and I back writing songs together. Because when he gave up, he didn't really give up, but he tapered down a lot, and he's super duper talented. When you watch Angel Shot, there's a song at the end I described. I'm like, look, I told him I'd write a song. I don't have time. Please help me. So he did. He did it in about a day, and the song is perfect. I wanted a very like Trey Parker, Matt Stone, South Park, like corny goof song to be the end credits. And he did it all on his own. He wrote the lyrics all on his own. He's just super duper talented, but he's not as showy or tall as me. Like, I'm loud and I yell at people, right? But the dream, sort of the end goal of all this, if there would be one, is for Dan and I to get back in the studio and write a song that can be a hit, because now I have a platform to do so. When we were small, we wrote lots of serious songs, and some I consider very good, but we had no ability to put them in front of a public population. And I've tried with serious music before, but I'm also not that good a singer. So, I think Dan should be the singer, and I think we should get back on it, but I want to hit some sort of tipping point before then. And that's kind of where I'm at.
So comment in the comment section.
Yeah, so say what you comment what kind of music you think Dan and I should make next. I mean, who knows how it's going to turn out, but that is...
it'd be interesting. I feel like you might be good at with your buddy Dan. You guys write Bring back the 5-minute song, the 7-minute song. Is that a thing?
Oh boy, no, that's done. TikTok has eliminated the 2-minute song. There's no bridges, there's no verses, there's no choruses, and that's fine. That's fair play. But the idea of even a guitar solo these days, I think, is just complete nonsense to a lot of popular music. You know, people, don't get me wrong, people still do it, but it almost seems like every time I see like a song shoot up on TikTok, if I look into the song, I look at the running time, and it's like 1:20. What is it? The Poland song, that Walk to Poland. Isn't that one super short?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like a number one.
Like a minute.
Yeah. And the idea that a 1-minute song can become like a worldwide hit is just interesting. And even though I'd love to bring back like long, extensive Meatloaf style rock operas, I fear there's no market for it anymore. Sure. And I think it's only going to get more severe. I feel like my boy, when he grows up and he's like, Dad, check out my favorite song, I feel like it's going to be like a 30-second snippet. And I'll be like, is that it? And they'll be like, yeah. And I feel like that's sort of just the way things are going.
Yeah.
You know, in the 70s, every song was 11 minutes. Every song had a guitar solo and, you know, just the guy talking for 3.5 minutes in the middle of it. Like, don't betray your ideals. And that was it. That was the song. But that doesn't happen anymore.
Oh, man.
What is it? November Rain is like 11 minutes long. Do you know that song?
No, I don't.
Guns N' Roses. See, I'm dating myself. Guns N' Roses, like a big song they had was November Rain, which was 11 minutes. And I think the radio cut was like 7 minutes because they had like 4 guitar solos. They had just all these unnecessary buildups and breaks. And you know, we don't need to do that anymore these days.
It's the moment. They were in the moment.
Yeah. It was in the moment. Now that moment is long past.
So a creator with, you know, over here you've got 4.7 million views. What's some advice you would give to somebody watching this video to help them become a better creator?
So, I mean, this is a tough question because when I talk to friends, when I talk to young people about what it takes to be a better creator, it's a bit of a loaded question because better doesn't necessarily mean higher numbers. And, you know, I gave a lecture at Drake about this recently where I talked to the students and one of my slides says, everything I'm about to say is morally wrong.
Right.
Only listen to this if numbers are all you care about, because you got to determine what you're comfortable with, right? So to be a better creator, you want to explore better techniques at refining what type of stuff you want to create. So for instance, as a musician, you should try to write better songs. Like that's very generic, blasé advice, but it's not really applicable in terms of what people think of being better creators. I almost always give the same advice. I'm like, if you're going to be a better creator, just rip people off. You know, if you don't care about numbers, you should find ways to copy other people's content, either directly or indirectly. And I've called out quite a few accounts in my day, like, you know, like big social media networks like Barstool and Lad Bible and these like larger conglomerates. They built their audience off just oh, that video's viral, I'm just going to repost it.
Right.
And so the proof is in the pudding. That kind of stuff works. The entire like duet, stitch, you know, point up with the green screen gimmick that a lot of people do on TikTok is super duper duper effective. And if people are able to ride that wave, they will grow faster. Are they a better creator? I mean, the short answer is probably not, but are they better in the eyes of the viewing public? Because once you get to a certain number, once you start to develop this sort of parasocial relationship with your fans, the word better is meaningless. It's just, he's big, he's made his bag. He must be smarter than me. He must be better than me, because they're able to sort of game the system. There's at least 2 accounts where their entire account is let a different person's video play, look at the camera. That's it. Is that better? That's a debatable question. But, you know, when I talk to young people, I tell them like your best way, if you want to be truly better, is think of ways to refine your craft, look at the ways other people are doing the same thing you're doing, and then maybe take influence from them. But if you want to grow fast, content theft is absolutely the best way to do it.
So do you think it's going to be like this for a long time?
I do, because the sort of idea of creative control has been scattered to the wind. One of the good things and bad things about democratization of popular content is that, well, A, anybody has a chance, but B, anybody super untalented also sort of has a chance if they can stumble across, an easy gimmick. There's a particular account I know that the guy he just took people's skits. He just took them. That's mine. No credit, no nothing. Built up a couple million followers. He eventually got dirt for it, but it didn't slow him down. He still has his platform. He's still able to get a lot of hits because if you build up with that, you will build up pound per pound. You're going to build up a lot faster than the guy who's like, well, I want to make interesting acting skits or whatever. Even Angel Shot, even I'm sort of a victim of this because I've realized that, I would try to make weird original stories and like, my fault because they're all too violent and weird. They get shut down or they don't go anywhere. But then when I insert the same ideas into an already established trend, it does work out well. Am I stealing directly from the creator? Not particularly, but I'm playing to a system that I didn't come up with myself. And so therein lies, I think it's a bit of a spectrum. I think there's a bit of a spectrum in creators on how much are you in this for creative expression versus how much are you in this to game the system. And I think, and there's a huge gray area there. And I feel like with just a little bit of media literacy, you can look at different people and be like, that guy, he wants to do this. This is what he loves doing. He doesn't, in the middle, he's like, maybe he's overplaying this a bit, but it works for him and whatever. He's still having fun making content. And over here, there's this probably other genre where they're just here to play games. They don't care about honesty. They will lie to you. They will stage it. There's no skill. And that's the second thing I'll advise people. If you just want to grow, staging scenes is the best. Staging scenes and portraying them as real is absolutely the best. And that is, it's a tricky line to cross. There was one guy who did like a fake, soldier dies and sends his wife home like a hologram message.
No way.
And it's so stupid. It's so stupid. And the fact that people watch it, right? People watch it and they're interested because they believe it's a real moment. But then when it's revealed that it's staged, half the people sort of drop out. They're like, oh my God, you tricked me. But half the people are sort of still with it, which I never get. They're like, oh no, well, it was still entertaining. And I'm like, are you so dumb that you don't realize the reason you thought it was entertaining is because it was real? You know what I mean? So I've referenced this before. And Kyle, if you're listening, we're friends now, so we're cool, right? We're going to collab. But one of the earlier people I called out for this was Kyle Sheely, a guy who signed on with a convenience store company to make like a fake viral video. He did a prank where he put his cardboard cutout of himself in the gas station to see if anybody would remove it. He called it a reverse heist. And it was very cute. It was very cool. Millions of hits. I liked it. I know the gas station. I loved it. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. He just made a cardboard cutout of himself and he left it there and they just thought it was real, and like no employees moved it and like some fans took pictures of it. And it was like a super heartwarming story. And then 2 days later, like the company messages him and they're like, we'd love to work with you. Like, what? Really? But the thing is, it was always an ad. Like it was always, there was no risk for the prank. To do a prank, in my opinion, if you know the outcome of the prank, you've just made a skit. It's an ad. So he got called out for it and he apologized and like, I'm cool with him now. Like, I just want to make that very clear. Like, I've gotten to know him better and I understood his point of view. Like back then, he had no idea what he was doing. He had no idea the sort of nuance of what he was doing. He was just impressed that somebody wanted to work with him. But to some of the people in my comments would be like, well, it was still entertaining, so I liked it. And I'm like, well, do you understand, like, the reason why you thought it was entertaining? Because you thought it was this very serendipitous moment. You thought it was this very beautiful thing where the little guy was just doing something fun and then got a cool corporate sponsorship and money. It's relatable because you hope it happens to you, right? You hope that you can do something cute and clever with your friends one day, and all of a sudden you got a boat of cash because some corporation said that's cool. That is something that's like a little fantasy. It's almost like winning the lottery. But to expose it as not real and still claim that you were entertained by it is just very odd. There was some guy who staged Karen videos where like he'd have an actress
those drive me crazy.
Yeah, they drive you crazy because
the fact that it's staged,
the fact that it's staged, but it's like super. on a macro level, the permissiveness of this is actually super manipulative. The first time I started to hate this type of content was Joey Salads, a guy who did a YouTube video where he parked a car. Do you know this video?
No, I know the creator.
So Joey Salads, he
Not
parked
personally.
a car filled with like coated in Trump stickers into like a predominantly black
That
neighborhood.
was a fake
That's
video?
a fake.
No way.
Now you know. So
Wow.
somebody from their apartment took a picture of a bunch of guys standing behind the camera already with the weapons. So then obviously he walks off camera. They beat up the car. Racists in the comments are like, of course, of course, of course.
Wow.
It fans unnecessarily flames of like, racial tension.
I don't like making content like that. I try to stay away from any.
Yeah, it's super political,
Yeah.
but it demonstrates like Joey Salads' video outperformed like the call out videos 10-1. You didn't even know about this.
Wow.
But the fact that it can even happen that way, that it can profit the creator is to me, what's so interesting isn't so much that it's a moral failing, but that it won't end you. That lying to your audience won't necessarily end you the way that maybe a moral person worries it should. Liver King lied about steroids. Liver King telling people to sleep on wood and building up this cute little narrative of like the 9 ancestral tenets when the guy was juicing the whole time. But of course, he's not going to talk about that because then he won't sell supplements. It's these sort of weak ideas that a person of low creativity can come across. And if they commit to it, they can grow super fast and potentially make ludicrous profit. And the smart ones get out before they're busted. If Liver King just got out, he was like, you know what? I'm going to decide to stop. Like maybe 4 or 5 months ago, probably nobody would have cared about the emails. He's already got his 10 million. Who cares? But greed's one hell of a thing. And the ones that get away with it, we may never know because they're smart enough to keep that close enough to the chest. Now, I'm not saying everybody's staging scenes, and I'm not saying like a scene, there can't be entertainment value there. But what I will say is that, again, it goes back to that better thing. My friends, they ask me like, I've only got 100 followers. How do I get more? I'm like, well, it means keep doing what you're doing or keep doing it better. Or just lie to people. just okay, what do you do? And like I've, couples, for instance, I'll be like, okay, just do like a fake proposal gone wrong. Why don't you just do that? I'll film it right now. How about this? Fake proposal go wrong or pretend like you caught him cheating. Are you ready? And they're like, huh? I'm like, simple, just fake it. But he's not really cheating on me. You said you wanted hits. We could do this right now. And many a times they say no because they don't want to be dishonest.
Wow. What a segue into becoming a better creator.
Maybe. Okay.
What a great.
Whoops.
What's some great advice. That was
a long answer.
That was awesome.
To become a better creator, you should.
I hope that the audience listening gets some value out of that. We touched on a lot of different points. It's
Sure.
very interesting. So, wow.
Cool.
Okay. Why so why did you pick up the camera in the first place?
It sort of goes back to the Dan story, is that like I knew that, I've always viewed myself as a musician. I was always like, when Dan sort of tapered off, I was like, you know what, Dan, one day, 10 years ago, I'm like, one day I'm not giving up. Like one day I'll get famous and we'll get there. You know what I mean? It's one of these like quaint, teenager, young guys in young 20s promises like, I'm never going to stop, man. And so that's kind of it.
Sounds like a good story.
Yeah, it's a good story. And if it pans out well, then it'll be like even better. You know what I mean? Like I do have visions of how that could occur. But, I picked up the camera because I felt like the world was moving that way. Just writing the songs and posting them to different online forums or Beatport or Reddit or whatever, it just I wasn't gaining any traction.
Did COVID affect you guys at all?
COVID did.
How did it change your strategy of shooting?
Yeah, we had to. Well, at the time, I was still super low effort. I think that is that when I did Egg on the Head. I feel like during COVID was when I did Egg on the Head because we had to focus on only resources we had in the house. We weren't going out a lot. I did a lot of skits in the house to sort of experiment with the system. Because once my watch video went off, I started to watch a lot more TikTok. I started to learn more about what's working. I'm like, oh, these type of skits work. People are doing these loop videos. People are doing these, like sometimes it's all about the song, like doing a skit that's related to the song. And so I would, start to experiment with that with COVID, and so would my wife. And we would realize that, she would have more success selling like her art through the TikTok platform, and she would eventually start designing a lot of clothes that we would sell primarily through TikTok and YouTube Shorts.
Okay, cool. Wow. Okay. Well, what is there any topic you want to talk about that I haven't talked to you?
Want to take a break and shoot the shit for a minute and have a drink?
Well, I don't drink, but
I know. I mean,
I do have some questions.
I was going to say we could walk and get. Oh no! Ask me any questions about. Let's bang out, because I like to get coffee when I brainstorm.
Okay.
There must be a coffee shop.
There is a very good coffee shop. I'll take you right next.
I would say,
and then we'll come back. And
I would say, ask me whatever you want. We can play some games. Like I'm at your disposal.
Your first viral video.
My first viral
watch
video on TikTok was the watch video. My first viral video of life, depending on your scale of viralness, is Captain Dan and the Scurvy Crew's Blackbeard's Treasure.
Cool. Let me hit you with a couple questions, all right? How long have you been on social media?
We've been on social media since I was probably 18 years old. I mean, but that's being on Facebook, not particularly being a showman. I had a YouTube channel. Well, actually, it's a bit of a lie. I used to, you know what? I lied. I started doing YouTube when I was pretty young, like probably 18 years old. And we did a short film called Ninja Pizza Delivery when we were in college. And it wasn't very good. And I feel like it's possible to find the old trailer where we set up a green screen. We were all very young. And so that was like when we started. So when we started, we like ninjas versus pirates was a big like funny thing back then. So we made Ninja Pizza Delivery. So I guess the short answer to your question is since I was 18.
Okay. How about, do you think it's too late for new people to join the platform? No,
definitely not. I think that is a very pessimistic view when people say, oh, it's already saturated, it's not going to work. You just got to plug it away. My buddy Commander Carl, give him a shout out. He started working with me on the Scumbag Dad series, and then he started to make his own skits. And of my friends, he's one of the only ones that like sort of pushed on and kept experimenting. Like I've got a lot of friends who have like gotten into it, but he's got, I think, 3 million followers now, and he does reloads. He like pretends like he's reloading like a toaster as if he's in the Call of Duty game. Okay. So it's like a first person reload of like a flashlight or a toaster or household items. And so he's done super duper well. So wait, I didn't answer the question, did I?
Is it too late for new
Oh, no, he's a perfect example of somebody who joined at a time that I would consider very late in the game compared to me, and he's managed to build up an extraordinary platform. So no, there are definitely examples daily that come around about people who blow up super fast who are still pretty new.
What is the future of social media? What do you think?
I do think, here's an honest answer, is I think that once YouTube gets its head around payment, I believe that it will become so much more lucrative to focus on YouTube that the others will struggle to catch up. What I believe will end up happening is a more universally rounded distribution of income amongst creators. I think that instead of like 3 or 4 like, Logan Pauls and David Dobrik's and these like multi-millionaire lunatics sort of dominating the platforms, we're going to have a lot of just like regular working Joes, guys like you and me, who are just like, they're not giving away Bugattis every 2 days, but like they're able to enjoy their lives and provide passion and content for the audience in their niche and be able to support themselves. I think that the future is, the short answer is like a wider acceptance of being a content creator as a regular, stable job rather than this lofty art thing that you have to get lucky to be a part of.
When you tell people what you do for a living, do you mention social media?
It sort of depends on context. Like I usually say I'm an orthodontist in like obviously professional contexts, but as my social life has changed due to TikTok, like I don't really need to say what I do. Most of the people I run into, most people I meet, like by the time I'm in that social situation, like, I hang out with a bunch of TikTokers and YouTubers and content creators now. And so like, we sort of already know each other, like, because we already follow each other. So by the time I get to the party, I just meet 3 of my mutuals. So I don't, some people are still floored when I say I'm an orthodontist, and that's understandable because it's, because I do so many like lies online. I do so many like pretend professional gags that for me to actually be one is a bit of a shock, honestly, to some people. And so lately, when I've introduced myself to people, I usually say I'm an orthodontist, but if it's in like a content creator party, I'm a TikToker.
Now, lately, I've seen that you're doing these style videos. This one really stands out to me. All right.
Yeah.
It's I'm not gonna
the
play
one,
the audio.
yeah, it's the one where I pretend like I'm doing good and I'm
I-
giving food to an empty restaurant. But it's not empty. It's just my wife and my child in there. So I'm buying it for everybody, but it's just.
And I love that you're like, excuse me, can I go ahead of you? I'm in a bit of a rush. I love that sentence. And then the person behind the cashier is like, oh, are you sure? Like,
Yeah.
Let me get my manager.
Yeah, I mean, they were in on it. They were just like I explained them the whole thing. One of my big like core conceits is I do my best not to directly involve people who don't know they're about to be involved in a video. So right now I'm on a big kick where I'm going after big fish. I'm going after the charity creators and making fun of them because as a non-creator, seeing their videos at surface level is fairly benign. Oh, it's great. Look at that, nice person, giving away money or giving away food. And there's definitely something to be said for the ethics of that. But from a creator standpoint, I feel like there are flaws there. There are ways to make fun of that content where this is what I consider a light one, where I take the premise and I subvert it. I'm like, well, wouldn't it be funny if they're not actually that nice? They're just buying for nobody essentially.
Right.
And so it's kind of like when I have these different arcs where I parody different things, like Angel Shot, like Rich versus Really Rich. Like there are different times where a concept becomes so well known on social media that I can sneak in these subversive ideas to sort of show like what the background could be. I feel like there are people who do charity videos very well on social media. I feel like there are certain ways that it may or may not be staged or sort of not presented this ingenuously.
Some of those people aren't staging it.
I mean, some of them aren't staging them. Some of them are. At the end of the day, the veil, it's very nebulous, especially when you deal with something like charity. In specific, the guys that I'm sort of like trying to criticize with this series, hidden cameras bother me. Hidden cameras on people who may or may not have who may not have a lot of money or may be homeless. That's sort of, ever since Joey Salads, I've always been leery of social experiments. The idea that you can film someone without their knowledge to try and prove a point. But an experiment is only as good as how controlled it can be. If you know the outcome, it's not an experiment. There's something. So there's a TikToker, I believe her name is Beauty to the Streets. She gives charity. Okay. She posts up a camera. It's just either she's holding it or it's just like at a stable position. And she shows people who approach her to receive charity and they get sandwiches. And we see sort of an unfiltered view. And some are very gracious. Some are a little bit in a rush. Like you get this very real feel from it. But every single one of these hidden camera, like, hey, could I have $1 to buy these chips? They always have this saccharine quality. They're never, I can't imagine not one person is like, no, I'm going to buy myself a nice dinner. Or like, hey, I'm going to buy myself a 6-pack. Like, does every single one have to say like, oh, well, I want peace on earth? Does every single one like, there's something about a curated quality to this that I'm trying to explore. And the fact that homeless folks can't get away. So anyways, Beauty to the Streets, she shows people in need, but they approach her for the charity. They're sort of enter her sphere. Whereas the TikTokers and YouTubers who are sort of approaching people randomly on the street, those guys have nowhere to go. That's their house. You know what I mean? They're on that bench. That's where they live.
Wow.
And some people have the gall to argue with me. They're like, well, you're in public. They shouldn't have any expectation of privacy. Like, are you crazy in the head? If you can't just film, like it's not, it's legal. It's legal just to film any homeless person who's on the street, but it's definitely not moral. And to sort of treat them like they're doing them a huge favor is sort of weirdly absurd. And I made a video about this recently. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I did a video like this. There was a regular, guy on a corner and I saw him a couple times. I gave him some money. And then I saw one of these videos and like the next day I pulled up and I bought him some sandwiches. I'm like, look, let me give you these sandwiches. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to do this thing with you. Right. I showed him my TikTok. I'm like, this is what we're going to do. This is the thing we're ripping off. Let's see how it goes and I'll post it. Right. He was all smiles. I gave him cash. I got him lunch the next day. We did the video. He was like, great, have an awesome day. I posted it and then I showed it to him. And he was like, I don't like it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, he didn't like the way he was portrayed because he was portrayed as homeless because he was begging on the street. So he's like, I was like, do you want me to take it down? He's like, yeah. So then it gave me this incredible insight on like needy folks that may in the moment, like they have no choice but to accept the charity. But somewhere down the line, they might see that video and be like, wow, I was having a bad day. That was the week I lost my home before I moved into a shelter. Like I didn't know millions of people were going to see that. And so it's this really sort of hot debate. And at the end of the day, you put a hidden camera and you mess with me or you, someone who's not homeless, like we might see it. We'll get tagged. We could speak against it. We could, depending on how badly they misrepresent us, they could we could crush them potentially. But what's a homeless guy going to do? Like if he doesn't like the way he was portrayed, they're props in the greater scheme of things. And there's not a lot of accountability. Furthermore, the idea of morality testing is just completely insane because a lot of people aren't going to deal with your bullshit. If you've got work to do, if you're busy, you're walking around, you're not going to want to play somebody else's game if they've shoved a camera in your face. But if you have a hidden camera and you're pretending to be poor or you're pretending to be injured, you are dynamically controlling the situation to manipulate their emotions in the moment. But you're so much more powerful than them and have so much more money that if they tell you off for lying to them, you might not, you have the freedom to not post it. Like I can imagine, like there's a guy who talked to me recently who was like, oh yeah, I want to do a good deed. So I paid for somebody who looked needy's groceries and they got mad at me. They were like, what, you think I can't afford this?
Oh my gosh.
What is this? And he's like, well, I was trying to do a good deed. But therein lies the thing is
But tape it. Also tape it.
But also tape it. At the end of the day, you don't really know what their sensibilities are. And rolling in with the hidden camera gives you an inordinate amount of power to control the scenario. You can curate who's shown. What I like about Beauty to the Streets is that she doesn't really do, to the best of my knowledge, she doesn't do a lot of curation. Like you see needy people in what I believe is a legit environment. She has to hire security to go do her work.
Wow.
You know what I mean? She's in there, right? There's no BSing that. But the sort of, I guess, the guys wandering around Walmart, trying to find people with maybe maybe on a walker or who definitely look like they're not doing super well, like they're pivoting the entire scenario. And if it doesn't go their way, they have the freedom to just bugger off. If that person who they gave the money to is like, oh yeah, I can't wait to, I really need this money to fight my wife. She's divorcing me because I hit her. You know what? Like they can cut that.
Oh my gosh.
They're going to cut it. I'm not saying that's what happens,
Yeah.
but the odds that they're always encountering these picture perfect sort of like.
You're right.
folks.
I've never seen that other side of it where they've said something that you don't like.
Well, of course, because why would they say that? It's not going to get as many hits. It's not going to get as many donations.
Yeah.
The donations and the distribution of donations is a completely different subject that like also can be addressed. But the toughest thing as a content creator as us is like new ideas, right? Like we gotta man. Like how can how can I take my idea? How can I make something new? If your focus is on needy people, especially in California, you will never run out. You can go out with $100 and a hidden camera and just walk around and you will get someone because the content. So I'll differentiate between Mr. Beast and these guys in just a second because I think it's relevant.
Sure.
The content is not based on the money giveaway. The content is based on that person's reaction. Look at that sweet old lady. She could not afford heat and now she can.
And then the sad
Look at this
plays.
guy in the wheelchair. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. Now he can. They don't need to think of anything new because they can just repeat the same scenario. And they have the ability to, because it's a hidden camera gag, they have the ability to sort of curate. They can't sort of get caught by anybody who didn't like it because you're going after folks who probably don't have a cell phone trained on you. You're not going into higher income areas where somebody might bust you. So in my scenario, the guy was very offended. Was it worth it to give him a sandwich? What if that humiliates him? Like, is mental health not important? He might be going through some things we don't even know. And now on top of his crummy life, now 4 million people have seen him begging. You know what? Right? So I believe there are ways around this. And so people ask me, like, is Mr. Beast just as bad? Like, Mr. Beast, I feel like his money giveaways are more based on the goofiness of the money giveaway itself. Like, you've got to stand in this triangle for 19 hours to get it. Like, it's still a little goofy, but like they have the choice not to do that.
Right.
Whereas an unhoused person, when faced with this situation, whether it's staged or not, they sort of might not know where their meal is coming from. So they'll take whatever they can get. In that moment, the potential humiliation may not be that important to them. And this is where, like, it's a super nuanced conversation. And the only people who say like, well, it's better than nothing, you know, like they might have died for that sandwich. I mean, they're not literally in the emergency room dying in that moment and need that sandwich. But I will always posit that when the focus is on that individual person's sort of altered narrative, that's when you get into real questions of ethics. Now, there are, you know, other, like, because I'm sort of in this right now, like, I believe the creators who cook a ton of food and then who give it away to poor people, I don't think they're nearly as bad, because their focus isn't on the plight of like an individual person. And because the people who receive the gift, who receive the food, they come to them. It seems like there's like pre-established, like, they know who they are, right? Like, I see people run up to them, they enter their space, and they make the choice on whether or not they want to participate in this. Maybe they already know there's a camera on, but maybe they don't. But at the end of the day, it's the difference between you approaching someone who has nowhere else to go versus someone with nowhere else to go approaching you. A middle class or upper class person, when they're bothered by somebody, they have sort of the ability or freedom to exit the situation and go home. But if you're a TikToker and you're doing content in front of that guy's bench, you are at his home. And technically it's legal to film him. Anyways, I got real deep into that.
I love the deepness.
But as far as making fun of them goes, it's kind of more to the same thing. I want to highlight that, you know, there are funny riffs on this. It's the same sort of concept. Like, they're creating a world where influencers are going around all the time paying for everyone's meal. What a beautiful world. What about guys with not a lot of money? What about you know, sleazier guys who say they'll pay for everything, but the restaurant's empty? You know, like, there's
or they take the money back.
Yeah, or they take the money back.
Yeah.
Or like, when I did some camera gags, but I walked around. I've done a lot of experiments with this, so I feel like I might have a slightly better perspective than people who've never tried it. But when I tried to ask people to be in my TikToks, just strangers, nobody wanted to do it. Every age level, every poverty level. Like, I would go to the mall, or I would, you know, be like, hey, I'm going to film a TikTok, do this. No, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to be on camera. Doesn't matter if I have 4.7 million followers. They do not want this, right? In my experience.
Very interesting. So
now, maybe in California it's different.
Maybe in a couple minutes we'll go outside.
Maybe in a couple minutes. All I'm saying is that when you come up to them and offer them sort of nothing but the camera, it seems like where I was at, they were very off put. But when I wear a sign that says, I'll pay you $5 if you're in it, now all of a sudden they're cool with it because they're getting something out of it. But more importantly is they're willing to say that they got more money than they actually got. I'll be like, look, I'm just gonna hand you this fake $500. You're gonna take it and just celebrate. But I'm only gonna give you $5. Is that fine? Yeah, I don't care. I'm getting $5. $5 is $5. And so therein lies. Now, I'm not saying this is what these guys are doing, but you know, I haven't explored that particular element. But since my Drake lecture, I have become much more interested in the nature of sort of twisty content and the nature of like how these narratives can be tweaked to be sort of clickbaity. And
you remind me of Captain Disillusion.
I love Captain Disillusion.
That's it.
He's great. He's great.
With
I love
social
Captain Disillusion.
experiments in 2022,
he's amazing.
2023.
Funny story about him. Did you see one of his recent videos?
Enlighten me.
He made a video where someone was like complaining about, like, they were like, how does this done? Like something that he got like a super viral video about disproving, right? They're like, how's this done? And he's like, guys, I'm so tired. Like, he does it in his own way, right?
Yeah.
But the general gist is, I'm so tired of disproving people because no matter how many times I do it, more people are suckered in. I can't keep making the same video disproving the same thing. Like, people are going to still be fooled by the same garbage over and over again. And in a way, like, I watched it, and as a fan of his, I was like, it was a pretty, even though it was an upbeat video, to me it was very sad. I'm like, you're right, man. No matter how many times you show the truth, even if it goes viral, even if it hits a wide audience, new audience members are born or enter the social media space every minute who maybe aren't familiar with you. And trying to expose this for what it is sort of a sort of feels like a long run losing game. You know, like I feel like Captain Disillusion in particular, because he's so good at this and he's so professional. Like me, I just wing it, you know. But I have a lot of respect for him, and I was sad when I saw him appear to be frustrated that even though he's fleeced these things a million times over and they've gone viral, the new people do the same scam, and they're like, how's this happening? So it's tough. It's tough to compete with that in this space because your explanation will never go as far as the made up story.
You know, I like that you're doing that though, and you're taking that approach with making content on the internet.
Thanks.
It's cool.
It's
I feel like somebody has to do it.
Somebody should, but
might as well be Scumbag
I sometimes feel like I'm not being very scummy anymore. I feel like I feel like I'm playing a weirdly different role, like that I initially set out, which is like to just be an asshole and a bully. And now my role is I'm bullying different people, but like in my twisted ethics, I'm like, but I'm being mean for the right reasons.
You're the righteous bully.
And so I do wonder if the reason why I am this way is because I do have a regular profession to fall back on, to be honest with you, is because I'm sort of immune to fluctuations in my view count or my income or my sponsors because I'm an orthodontist. You know what I mean? I don't need any of this.
Are you posting? How regularly are you posting?
I try to post every day.
Every single day.
Every single day. Whether it's a high concept skit or just a watch review, I do my best to post every single day. I do miss, but I do.
Is it to one platform?
No, I'll post on all of them: TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, and Instagram.
So what about Facebook?
Facebook. I think my Instagram auto uploads to Facebook.
Uploads?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you in any of those like bonus programs?
Yeah, I'm in all of them, and put together, they make for a mild income that makes it worth doing.
Right.
You know, like we all know the individual bonus programs are like not very good, but if you have 3 of them, it's suddenly okay. And Snapchat's a funny one because Snapchat, I'll have a dry spell for like a month, and then suddenly they'll send me $7,000 for mouth video.
Gosh.
So like Snapchat's not one I like to rely on. But the other ones like are fairly steady, and it's good. It's, Instagram, something might flop, then it blows up on TikTok or it blows up on YouTube. For instance, my idea of the like charity influencer being like, hey, can I have Pringles? But there's a needle inside of it, and the guy gets a disease. Did you see that one?
No, I saw the one where the guy got in the Pringles and he was accused for murder.
Yeah. So that one was fun to do. Like, but the idea is like, turn it on its head. And so I did one where instead of money in the Pringles can, the guy found a needle outside and the character cuts himself. He's like, why'd you do this? And the cameraman says, well, you said it was a season of giving, so I thought I'd give you a lesson. What lesson is this? Don't trust strangers, which is true.
Right.
Like the idea, even like probably you and I are going to have a coffee and we're going to workshop what do you pay for rent in LA gag. Yes. But the concept... I do understand, like, you need a premise. You want to show up.
Let's work through that gag in real time just so the viewers can be aware.
So yeah, we're in Venice, but in the like, in a real life scenario, with someone without a camera, or even with a camera approaches you as a stranger.
Yeah.
And just says, hey, what do you pay for rent? You're not going to answer the question. And you're definitely not bringing them home that day. Are you crazy? That's how people get murdered. But the sort of like fantasy of these.
Oh my gosh, the TikTok murderer is going to be a thing.
That's true. Like
knock on wood.
you would never know.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm saying like the idea of these serendipitous things, the street photographer who just meets you and does this wonderful photo shoot, or the person, who asks you to show, like when you allow somebody into your life, like the street photographers ones those are fine in a certain way. But
those touch base.
No, because I'm sorry.
No.
The reason people like those because they're very serendipitous, but they're not particularly. They're not your home. You know what I mean? Like if I believe those are real in some cases, but the can I see your apartment is just, especially when it's like a young girl, it's just so bizarre. Like that.
It seems bizarre that they say yes, and they say yes right away.
They say
if
yes
it's not
right
staged,
away.
Then
And
it's not staged.
even if it is, but like what kind of insane sort of, it's just a premise that works. it's a riff off sort of like the Daniel Mac, like what kind of car do you drive?
Yeah.
You know, no, sorry, what do you do for a living? What kind of
Or-
car do you drive? But it's sort of a riff on that where they want to show their apartment, but they can't just say like, this is my apartment, look how pretty it is. They need to be like, this is what $5,400 gets you in New York.
Right.
Oh, how do you make that even more engaging? Oh, well, excuse me, what do you rent in New York? So that you can see the person's fit, you can see him on the street. Like there's something in the meta of that. You know, they're definitely skits, but they present this distorted world because they aren't like, it's so tough to like articulate this.
Because they're going off that it's real.
They're pretending it's real
it's
in
real.
that moment, because if they don't, they won't get as many views. And it's that sort of technique, that sort of behavior that I think has changed media and the nature of what it means to be real, to make real content, because people don't care. They're like, whatever, it's scripted anyways. And now everything's scripted. And we've, you know, I'm not saying it's particularly bad, but it just means that you don't need to go that to be a better creator, kind of falling back to that. To be a better creator, you know, maybe you don't need to fall back on trying to do the most original, craziest thing you can. Just do a fun little apartment tour and do the fun little thing that the other guy did, and maybe you'll discover something about yourself that makes you better at it the next time. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with doing trends, even if they're completely unrealistic.
So do you think there's a pressure to keep one-upping these trends? Like, what's it going to be next?
Well, I mean, for me, there is a pressure to sort of keep, I'll tell you what my pressure is. It's to keep what I think is my current, I guess, status as a person, because privately, I call this the turn. So the turn is when a creator has a certain ethos where they make content a certain way, or they have an audience who believes in them a certain way, and they change that ethos for either more convenience or more profit. You know, I've learned that, you know, through my Drake experiment especially, I've learned that if I stage social experiments, I will annihilate my current numbers, right? I will destroy them. And I may become way more famous, but it will be at the cost of knowing that I've now sort of started to participate in the thing that I've criticized and riled against. I've become a part of the machine. And sort of the pressure on me is to try, I feel like in my particular case, I can't rely on anything else except continually innovating. I'm a 40-year-old married man. I'm not doing dances. I'm not attractive enough to make thirst traps. Like there is a way that certain creators can essentially repeat themselves over and over and do very, very well. And I feel like that is not my lot. I feel like my entire brand is based on continually subverting expectations. So once I'm, you know, like I said, every 2 to 3 months, I'll try a big project, a music video or a big film. But, you know, what's next? I feel like it'll sort of come organically. Just like making fun of the charity guys, it came organically. I didn't sit down and say, okay, now's the time to do charity guys. I was doing something different, you know, and I was like, all right, I'll poke fun at this in a small way, just like with Scumbag Dad. Just kind of test the waters, do a real quick one. And that real quick one was real quick. The guy came up, hey, can you help me buy these Pringles for my son? And then I got the money. Oh no, he didn't give any money. He walked away. And I'm like, hey, wait a second. Aren't you supposed to give me money? I want money. You're supposed to give me money when that's what you do, right? So that one took no props, no planning, no effort. And it got like 1 million views. So it showed me, okay. And as time goes on, I'm going to see, you know, probably move on to the next thing as far as my short form content goes. And it seems like I always talk about, I know I'm waxing poetic a lot here.
Go ahead.
But I made a video, like a couple of videos that flopped that were about what I call the infinite content concept, or, IC, or infinite content for short, which is the equation that you apply endlessly that always works. So Cubby Lame is probably the best example of a good IC, where he took somebody else's thing and goes like this. And then perhaps like does the thing logically, right? Infinite content, that made him the biggest TikToker. Dancers, they have an infinite content built in because they can either choreograph their own or do a trending dance. It's infinite content because their ability to generate new content can be sort of, I think I had 3 rules, is that A, you have to be able to do it yourself. B, it has to be inexpensive. And I said B or 3, whatever. And third, is that the concept can be outsourced from other elements, okay, other sources. Joe Bartolozzi, who I like, has an infinite content concept.
Yeah, totally.
Plays a video. What is that? You know, I don't dislike these guys, but the thing is that I feel like a lot of them didn't set out to do it. They stumbled into it by doing other things. Kabi Lame did other skits before he finally started to blow up with his signature move. You know, so, you know, whether I'm right or not, but I feel like I will never get one. the guy who did the I'm better, faster, stronger.
What are you talking about? This is your infinite.
Well, it is in a certain sense.
It is.
But that's mine. And so I guess, but wait, there's one part you missed there, is that it has to be inexpensive. And some of mine, I spend a lot. I put good money on props and stuff.
I've got it. And I haven't mentioned this yet in this interview, and I just thought of it. Mr. Skelly Bones.
I love Mr. Skelly Bones. I love him. Yeah, doing the POVs was really, really great.
What about that whole story where it was the same story and
I got bored of it. Honestly, it got.
That was inexpensive.
That was, you know why I did that is because we were in Egypt at the time and I knew I wouldn't be filming a lot. So I decided to experiment with just the same thing and I'm super happy it worked. And you know what, maybe I'll go back into it, but there was something about doing that too much where I was like, I'm becoming the thing that I criticize. I'm no better. I'm no better. I have to change. And so like that was a certain era that I was very proud of. And I can always dip back in. Like people, some like astute folks have noticed that like when I dip back into watch content, usually means I'm taking a breather because I love watches. But like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah, sometimes or it's either because I'm taking a creative breather or because I got banned recently, and because I got like post banned and I don't want to get hurt. So I'm like doing, hey, look at this was the best watch for space outfits. You know what I mean? But I love watches anyways. But if I'm doing like a bunch in a row, that usually means I got hit recently and I need to like take a breather, sort of reassess myself while still maintaining daily content.
That content you're posting, what do you call that storyline?
POV. I mean, I think they would call it like acting or POV content. And so that was me trying to like hit the POV community. And to be fair, like a lot of them got the joke and a lot of them collaborated with me. And now I'm friends with a couple of them, you know, like there's definitely a self-awareness inside of a lot of these content creators where, you know, someone like myself on surface level may look at them as cringy and sort of awful, but when you get to know them, you realize that they're sort of also playing the same gag. And I'm not saying all. There are certain people who do not realize what they are and are pretending like they're really good, who I won't talk about. But it's all in how they react to me. Like I've had very good conversations and even collaborations with people I've directly made fun of, and I've had people block me
Sorry.
and react quite negatively. And they're not realizing, like, those folks, I feel, took themselves too seriously, and they aren't realizing, like, I'm doing this sort of for fun, and because it's easy. Because we won't get into the meta of that, but a lot more people are self-aware than you realize. Like, I feel like especially the POV community, like we might make fun of it for like being goofy and for the plots for being like bad, but it works and it's low effort and it's infinite content.
The POV, is that where, you know, I'm just making sure we're talking about the.
It's like, oh my God, what's my birthmark?
Yes.
Or like, oh, Dad, what's this above my head? You know, like those stories, they work on a lot of levels. Like, people watch them because they're cringy.
But wait, let's take one step back. I want to explain to the audience, just if they're really toned in on this real quick. So you would do the same, you like had blank spaces.
Yes.
Well,
what it was the same. It was me in front of a green screen.
Yeah.
Doing the same script. So it was, hey, what's this? And then just a couple seconds of waiting. And then I'd go, oh, wow. And then, hey, friends at school. And then like a couple seconds of waiting. It's like, I know how to save the day with my thing. And so it was these and then at the end, it would be like, hey, I saved the day with my thing. and then I would like smile,
Yeah.
because all of the plots sort of were the same. I mean, they're not all exactly the same, but they were always like a mark on the face that indicates that you're royalty, or instead of money, it's time, or instead of money, it's blinks, or instead of money, it's blood, or instead of money, it's diamonds, or instead of money, it's doggy kisses. Like what I realized is I made that one up, but it was always like a random superpower, but it seemed like the plot was always sort of the same. Someone wakes up, something happens to them that's strange. This something is acknowledged by a parent, and then they go into a social setting like a school or work, and then people make fun of them for that thing. But then that thing turns out to be the thing that saves the day, or it's something that allows them to be the chosen one. And now they're important for some reason, because that's just the way the plot works. And they're these very concise stories that essentially are the plot of a million other teen novels. Like, you know, and that's why they work, because the plots are super concise. I think in a lot of them, like, the people look on the acting. They're like, you know, some of them take the acting very seriously. Some of them take the plots, you know, like they do more makeup, more lighting. And so the art and the creativity, it's sort of based on how much they like that person's sort of interpretation of the trend or interpretation of the lines. Nobody's criticizing, nobody's being like, oh, wow, this plot is amazing, because the plots are always just bonkers. But I would realize that, like, that's a good way to get hits. It's a way to play the game. If you want to be an actor on TikTok and you don't want to have to write a brand new script, you can just take Devin Caherly's, you know, who's one of the forerunners here, and just do his. And some of them really like me, and some of them really don't. But at the end of the day, you know, in a way, I sort of got tired of that. And that thank God I did that series, because that's what led to I've Got a Bullet for You, which was a classic line that I have interspersed throughout my series. So longtime Scumbag Dad fans have seen these long-running gags that end, but then I'll sprinkle them in. And like the Angel Shot movie was just like sort of a love letter to that. Like, all right, you know, there is a meta storyline that links the Angel Shot universe to Scumbag Dad, but for me to build it up again, because I'm constantly getting banned, like with Scumbag Dad stuff, I have to like constantly deviate my plots. But I will say that the universes are tangentially connected.
Universes, I love it.
So yeah, so that's what the POVs were. I don't do that anymore, but it would be so easy to go back in. But again, I did that for convenience. I was traveling, I was in Egypt. So instead of filming new stuff, I would just voice over, change the titles, instead of superpower being, I know I can see my soulmate. Now my superpower is there's bees in my butthole. Now, instead of bees in my butthole, the next one is I can see people's ages, you know, and it's the same script. I just do a new voiceover. Hey mom, what's this? Oh, it's your age. You can see everybody's age. Hey mom, what's this? Oh yeah, there's bees in your butthole. And 80% of them I improvised on the spot. I didn't write a script. I just turned on the thing. I'm like, your soulmate.
It sounds like that too.
Yeah.
I love that about it.
Yeah. It's very, I'm very, very much channeling my inner Rick and Morty, my inner Justin Roiland.
Do you know those guys?
Oh, I've never met them.
Man.
But like one of my favorites was when I did, some of my favorites is when I'm just eating lunch, when I'm like, cereal, like, oh no, mom, the dragon's coming. And I'm just talking to myself like a lunatic in a restaurant eating a burrito. And back to dark themes, there is one where I'm like, I'm criticizing myself. I'm like, you can't keep doing this forever, Brad. And I'm eating a burrito.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shut up. And I had no script. I'm like, shut up. But I knew I wanted to kill myself at the end. And so I like got really disturbed at the end. And so the voices are like, I'm like, get away. I got a bullet for you. And so I killed them in a burrito shop. And they're like, you won't get us. If you want us to stop, you're aiming that bullet the wrong way. Like indicating that I'm like a schizophrenic person talking to myself in a Pancheros. And so like that one did pretty well, but at the end of the day, you know, I felt like I explored enough of that. And thank you for loving Mr. Skellybones. I actually have a Mr. Skellybones live suit that I've used in two videos, but he's going to make a big appearance. There's a Synthrat, Skellybones play sort of behind the scenes of the whole lore, but I need to accomplish certain things to make it make sense. That's all.
Okay, let's wrapping up the podcast. What do you see yourself doing 2023? So you're at 4.7 on TikTok.
Yeah.
Where are you going to be at this time next year?
My guess is I'll be at least 4.8 on TikTok by this time next year. What I'm guessing, what I see myself doing next year is I do see at least one. Oh, one.
Oh, we're good.
Oh, I see at least one
of
more.
The cameras.
I see at least one more like big project with Melissa Ong and Stanzi Potenza. I am currently getting into watch design.
Okay.
So 2023, like obviously I'm into watches. My wife has designed 2 watches.
Wow.
Yeah, cool. Because I'm big into watches, I get to know these companies. I'm like, yo, let my wife design one, please. I mean, I'm not rude about it. I'm like, yo, my wife is a beautiful artist. She's got all these crazy designs. And so I've managed to get her 2 watch design gigs that sold out super duper well.
Wow.
And so through that, now I have 2 watch designs that I've come up with that I will be releasing next year in conjunction with companies. Like, it's so cool. This is the magic of TikTok, is because I got popular as like a goofy watch guy. I can write to the companies and be like, yo, man, like I'm a goofy watch guy. Anytime I post your watches, like, do they sell? They're like, yeah, they actually sell. I'm like, well, why don't I design a watch for you? And let's just see how that goes. And so I've got 2 designs I'm super excited about.
That's cool. All right. Do you have any plans to like get out of dentistry at all?
So I have no concrete plans to get out of orthodontics. The only thing that would pry me away would be if there is some sort of, you know, I guess super big, like bombshell reason, like Dan and I get a top 40 hit or something like that, where now it doesn't make any sense for me to be an orthodontist anymore. These days, there is a little bit of odd pressure because some patients a lot of new patients recognize me. And it's tough to balance my dark content with just the knowledge that I'm like a family-friendly guy in real life. But I would only quit if it made a lot of sense at the time. And, you know, perhaps getting an agent will be the part of that. But I do foresee, like, somewhere in the future, no longer being in Iowa. I do think raising my son outside of Iowa is probably going to be a strategically smart decision, just because I feel like it will give him, like, more diversity. You know, he's a half Korean kid, and there aren't, you know, where we live, it's not very diverse. And I want him to be around family. We don't have any family there. We just have, like, a couple of friends, and I want him to be around, like, his grandma. And I want him to learn Korean really well and to be around other Korean family members. So I think it's important that we consider that once he gets a little older.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I feel like this is a good time to break.
Sure is. Let's break.
And shoot that.
Let's get a coffee.
That gag video and get a cup of coffee. Thanks so much. Cool. Oh, man, I forgot to hit record.
Huh?
I'm just kidding.